In the pre-dawn hush of Maplewood, Virginia, Everett Langston jogged alone, his footsteps echoing through Crestwood Park's mist. A billionaire cloaked in grief, his heart was a fortress until a faint cry pierced the silence. A girl and 3 babies, abandoned on a bench, about to unravel his guarded world forever. This is another compelling true-life story. Don't miss it. Welcome to Reddit Tales. Please support this channel by clicking the like button and subscribing. Everett Langston, at 52, was a billionaire whose wealth spanned industries, yet his heart was a vault of solitude. His mansion, with its countless rooms and polished marble, echoed with emptiness. Each morning, before dawn painted the sky, he jogged through Crestwood Park near his home in Maplewood, Virginia. The park was a haven of silence at that hour, with only birdsong and the rustle of leaves breaking the stillness. That morning, Everett moved slowly, hands in pockets, his mind adrift in routine thoughts. He expected nothing extraordinary, but as he passed a weathered wooden bench beneath an ancient oak, a pile of ragged blankets caught his eye. He dismissed it as litter, took a few steps, then froze. Curiosity tugged him back. He looked again. The blankets moved. Everett stepped closer, his heart beating a little faster. As he came near the bench, he saw a girl, maybe 19 years old, lying on her side. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Her face looked pale and tired. Her eyes were closed. She wasn't moving. Next to her were 3 tiny babies, wrapped in thin cloths. They were crying softly, their little hands reaching out. They looked cold. Their faces were wet with tears. Everett stood still. His mind raced. Should he call the police? Should he wait? But the babies cried louder. One of them started coughing. Everett made a decision. He gently picked up the babies one by one and held them close to his chest. Then he carefully lifted the girl into his arms. She was light, too light. She didn't wake up. She didn't even stir. Without another thought, Everett walked quickly back to his car. People on the street turned to look, surprised to see the well-known billionaire carrying children and a homeless girl. He didn't care. He placed the girl and the babies in the backseat and drove fast toward his mansion in Oak Ridge Heights. His hands shook slightly on the steering wheel. He didn't know who they were or what their story was, but something in his heart told him this was not just a random meeting. This was meant to happen. The big black gate opened slowly as Everett's car drove into the mansion. The house was quiet as always. Birds flew across the garden, and the morning sun touched the windows. Inside the house, Mabel Thornton, the housekeeper, was already working. She had worked for Mr. Langston for over 15 years and knew his routine well. But today felt different. She looked out the window and saw Everett rushing out of the car. Her mouth dropped open. "Are those babies?" she whispered to herself. Everett carried 3 small babies in his arms and had a young girl on his back. Mabel ran to open the front door. "Sir, what happened? Who are they?" she asked, shocked. "No time to explain," Everett said quickly. "Get warm water, blankets, and call the doctor now." Mabel blinked in surprise. She had never seen her boss like this. His voice was firm but full of worry. They laid the girl gently on the living room couch. The babies were placed on a soft rug near the fireplace. Mabel quickly covered them with warm blankets and brought bottles of milk from the kitchen. Everett held one of the babies and tried to help feed him. The baby took the bottle eagerly, sucking fast. "They're hungry," Mabel said softly, "starving." Everett nodded. "I found them in the park." She was passed out. The babies were crying, cold, scared. Mabel checked the girl's forehead. "She has a fever, and she's so thin. This girl hasn't eaten properly in days." Soon, the family doctor, Dr. Elias Harlan, arrived. He examined the girl and the babies carefully. After a few tests, he looked at Everett and Mabel with concern. "They're weak but alive. The girl has low blood sugar and is badly dehydrated. She needs rest, food, and care. The babies are underweight. They'll need good nutrition." Everett sat down slowly. He watched the babies sleep, their tiny chests rising and falling. The young girl, still unconscious, looked peaceful now but too quiet, too still. "Make a room ready for her," Everett said to Mabel, "and one for the babies." Mabel nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. But are they staying here?" Everett didn't answer right away. He just stared at the sleeping girl. "I don't know who they are," he said softly, "but they're safe now. That's what matters." Mabel looked at her boss with new eyes. In all her years working for him, she had never seen him care like this. The house, once filled with silence and sorrow, now held the sound of tiny breaths and something else, a spark of life. The sun was already high when Lila Hensley opened her eyes. At first, she didn't know where she was. The soft bed, clean sheets, and warm smell of food confused her. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. But then panic hit her like a wave. "The babies!" she gasped. She sat up too fast. Her head spun. She looked around and saw the 3 babies lying nearby in a small crib. They were wrapped in clean clothes and sleeping peacefully. Lila jumped out of bed and rushed to them. She picked up Violet first, holding her close, then Theo and Iris. Tears ran down her face as she hugged all 3. Her hands shook, her body weak, but her heart full of fear. "Where am I? Who brought us here?" she whispered. Just then, the door opened slowly. Everett stood at the doorway, watching quietly. His face was calm, but his eyes held concern. "You're safe," he said gently. "No one will harm you here." Lila backed away, holding the babies tight. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Please don't take them from me," she said, her voice cracking. "We didn't steal. We were just tired." "No one is accusing you of anything," Everett replied. "I found you in the park. You were unconscious. The babies were crying. I brought you here to help." Lila looked down, ashamed. Her legs gave in, and she dropped to her knees, still holding the babies close. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want this. I just wanted them to live." Everett walked slowly toward her and knelt down. "It's okay," he said softly. "They're alive. You are too. That's what matters." Lila cried harder. She hadn't cried like this in months, not since her mother died, not since the streets became her home. Everett didn't touch her, but his presence was calm, quiet, kind. After a few minutes, Lila wiped her face with her sleeve. "My name is Lila," she said. "These are my siblings. They're not mine, but they're all I have." Everett nodded. "I'm Everett, and you don't have to tell me everything now. Just rest." Lila looked at him, unsure. She wanted to trust him. Something about his voice felt honest, but she had learned not to trust too easily. Still, for the first time in a long while, she felt something warm in her chest. Maybe it was hope. Lila sat near the window, watching the sun go down. The babies were asleep in their crib, full from the warm milk Mabel had. Hundreds of names, faces, dates. Then he paused. Clara Hensley, start date July 2008, position cleaner, end date December 2015. He flipped the page, and there it was, a photo. His breath caught in his throat. It was her. Everett stared at the picture. The woman had kind eyes, a soft smile, and short curly hair. He remembered that face clearly because, years ago, she had saved his daughter's life. It was at a company family day. His daughter, Sophie, had wandered too close to the pool. In the blink of an eye, she had fallen in. No one had seen it happen except Clara. Without thinking, Clara had jumped into the water, fully dressed, and pulled her out. His daughter had coughed and cried, but she lived because of this woman. He had thanked her, of course, given her a small bonus. But with time, life moved on. Now, years later, her daughter had landed at his doorstep, starving, homeless, and carrying the weight of 3 babies. Everett sat down slowly, holding the photo to his chest. "Clara," he whispered, "you saved my child, and now maybe it's time I save yours." He left the old building with a strange mix of emotions: guilt, wonder, fate. When he got back to the mansion, Lila was sitting in the garden with Mabel and the babies. She looked peaceful, not knowing the secret Everett had just uncovered. He stood at a distance for a moment, watching her laugh softly as Violet pulled her braid. The sun lit her face, and for the first time, he saw Clara in her smile. This wasn't just an act of kindness anymore. It was something deeper, something meant to be. The house was quiet that night. The babies had gone to sleep early, and Mabel had already gone to her room. Lila sat in the garden, her legs tucked under her, staring at the stars. She heard footsteps behind her, but she didn't turn. She knew it was Everett. He sat down beside her without saying a word. For a while, they just sat in silence. Then Everett spoke, his voice low and heavy. "I found out something today, something about your mother." Lila turned her head slightly. "You knew her?" Everett nodded slowly. "Yes, her name sounded familiar. I couldn't place it at first, but then I remembered. Years ago, she worked for one of my companies, just a cleaner, quiet, kind, always early." Lila looked at him, confused. "One day," Everett continued, "we had a family event. My daughter, Sophie, was just 6. She slipped near the pool and fell in. No one noticed except Clara." Lila's eyes widened. "Your mother saved her. She didn't even stop to think. She just jumped in. Sophie lived because of her." Lila covered her mouth with her hand, tears forming in her eyes. Everett swallowed hard. "I thanked her, gave her a bonus, and then life moved on. I never saw her again." Lila blinked back tears. "She never told me." Everett looked at the sky. "Maybe she didn't think it mattered, but it mattered to me. I just didn't realize how much until now." Lila looked down at her lap. "But you said, lived. What happened to your daughter?" Everett's face changed. A deep sadness passed over his eyes. "She died 2 years later," he said softly. "Car accident. A drunk driver. I wasn't there. I was in another country, in a meeting." Lila's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I've carried that guilt for years," he said. "I stopped going out, stopped opening my heart to anything or anyone. I kept telling myself it was safer that way." He looked at Lila now, really looked. "But then I saw you in that park with those babies, and something in me cracked open." Lila's lip trembled. "You've been through pain too." He nodded. "And so have you." The silence between them now felt different. It wasn't empty. It was full of memories, pain, and something new. "For me, I think your mother left you with more than just 3 babies," Everett said gently. "She left you her courage." Lila wiped her face and gave a small, quiet smile. "And maybe your daughter left you something too," she said. "What's that?" he asked. "A reason to care again." They sat under the stars, not as a billionaire and a poor girl, but as 2 people learning how to breathe again. Together, the days began to feel different. The air seemed lighter somehow inside the mansion. Everett was busy with work, but every time he came home, he would check on Lila and the babies. He brought toys for the children, books for Lila, and always made sure they had enough food. It was becoming more than just a safe place. It was starting to feel like a home. One afternoon, Everett sat down with Lila in the living room, where the babies were playing nearby. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the room. Everett looked at Lila, his face kind but serious. "I want to help you, Lila," he said softly. "I've been thinking about it a lot. You've had so much on your shoulders already. You shouldn't have to carry it all alone anymore." Lila looked at him, hesitant. "I don't want to owe you anything." Everett smiled gently. "It's not about owing me. It's about what's best for you and for those babies." She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting nervously. "I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore, not like that." "I'm not asking you to trust me completely," Everett said. "I'm asking you to let me help you stand up, to give you a chance to go back to school, a chance to dream again." Lila's eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't even know where to start. I've been out of school for so long. I don't think I can do it." "You can," Everett said firmly. "You're smart. You've survived this long. Trust me, you have the strength to start over. I'll pay for your education, all of it. You won't have to worry about money, and I'll make sure the babies are cared for while you're studying." Lila swallowed hard. The idea sounded too good to be true. She wanted to say yes. She really did. But something inside her resisted. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked quietly. "I'm just a stranger." "You're not a stranger," Everett replied. "And, if you remember, it's your mother who saved my daughter. It's my turn to help you. This is my way of saying thank you." Lila looked away, her heart heavy. She didn't want to be weak. She didn't want to depend on anyone. Just then, Mabel entered the room, holding a tray with fresh tea. She smiled warmly as she set it down. She could see the tension in Lila's face and sat down beside her. "Lila," Mabel said softly, "I know it's hard to accept help. I understand. But think about the future. Think about those babies. They need you to be strong for them, and the only way to do that is to take the opportunity that's here, right in front of you." Lila hesitated. She felt torn between the pride that had kept her fighting on her own and the fear of failing if she accepted Everett's help. "Sometimes," Mabel continued, "the greatest strength is knowing when to let go, when to let others in. You don't have to carry everything alone." Lila blinked away the tears that threatened to spill. "But what if I can't do it? What if I fail?" "You won't fail," Mabel said, her voice warm and comforting. "You have all of us now, and you're not alone." Lila looked at Everett, then back at Mabel. Slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. I'll try to go back to school." A small smile spread across Everett's face. "You're making the right choice." For the first time in a long while, Lila felt a small spark of hope. It wasn't the big, bright flame she had dreamed of. It was smaller, more fragile, but it was enough to move forward. As the days passed, the mansion began to feel like a real home again. The laughter of the babies filled the air. Lila slowly started her studies with the help of online classes. And though it wasn't easy, every step forward made her feel stronger. And, for the first time in years, Lila allowed herself to believe in something more, a future. It was a quiet afternoon when Lila walked into the living room with a small piece of paper in her hand. The babies were napping, and Everett was sitting by the window, looking out at the garden. He had been thinking about how far they had come, how much had changed in such a short time. Lila walked up to him slowly, her hands trembling just a little. She held out the paper to Everett. This is for you," she said, her voice soft, almost shy. Everett looked at the paper, unsure of what to expect. It was a drawing, a simple sketch, but it was beautiful in its innocence. The lines were uneven, and the colors were all over the place, but it didn't matter. In the middle of the page was a figure, a man standing next to 3 little children. At the top of the page, in childish handwriting, was a word, Papa. Everett's heart stopped. He stared at the drawing, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "Papa," he whispered, almost to himself. Lila nodded, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "Violet drew it," she said. "She doesn't really understand it yet, but she calls you Papa. She sees you as, well, as family." The word hit him harder than he expected. He looked down at the drawing again, at the 3 little faces next to his own. His chest tightened. Everett had always been a man who kept his emotions locked away. His daughter's death, the loneliness of his life, the walls he built to protect himself, they had all kept him distant from feeling real emotions. But something about the simplicity of the drawing, the trust in those innocent eyes, broke through his walls. Tears filled his eyes, and, for the first time in years, he let them fall. He didn't try to hold them back. The grief he had buried for so long, the guilt, the pain of losing Sophie, the emptiness of his life, finally poured out. He didn't need to hide it anymore. Lila watched him, unsure of what to say. She had never seen Everett like this. The man who had always been so strong, so composed, was breaking down in front of her. But there was something about the way he cried. It wasn't just sadness. It was a release, a weight being lifted. Everett had been holding on to so much for so long. And now, here, in this quiet moment, he was finally letting it all go. After a few moments, he wiped his eyes and looked at Lila, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've been trying to protect myself for so long," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "I kept my distance, kept my heart closed. But these babies and you have changed everything." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I want to do more. I want to give them a future, a real one, a future full of love, security, and everything they deserve." Lila's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I want to adopt them," Everett said quietly but firmly. "I want to make them my children, legally. I want them to have a future, a place where they are safe and loved. I want to be their father." Lila's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this. She had always known Everett was kind, but this was more than just kindness. It was a promise, a commitment. "Are you sure?" she whispered. Everett nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I don't want to waste any more time. I want them to have everything I can give them." Lila felt tears welling in her eyes. She had always feared the future for her siblings, wondering where they would end up, who would care for them. But now, Everett was offering them something she never thought possible, a real family. The babies, her siblings, would have a future with a father who would love them, a future filled with hope. Everett stood up and held the drawing close to his chest, a symbol of the promise he was making. "I'll make sure they're taken care of. I'll give them everything they need. They will know they are loved." Lila stood too and hugged him. She didn't say anything at first. There were no words that felt right. But, in that moment, she knew everything was going to change. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. And the triplets, her siblings, were going to grow up surrounded by love and care. They had a future, and it started right here with this unexpected gift. A year had passed since Everett had made the decision to adopt the triplets, and so much had changed in their lives. Lila was sitting in a lecture hall, a notebook in front of her, listening carefully to the professor. She was no longer the young woman who had struggled to survive, the girl who had carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Now, she was a university student, her future stretching ahead of her. She was working hard, but, for the first time in a long time, she felt confident. She was learning and growing, something she never thought possible just a year ago. At home, the triplets were thriving. Violet, Theo, and Iris were no longer the quiet, scared babies Everett had found in the park. They were happy, healthy, and full of energy. They ran around the mansion, laughing, playing with their toys, and learning new things every day. Mabel had become like a second mother to them, and Everett was their father now. Everett wasn't just a billionaire anymore. He was more than that. He had found a new purpose in life. Every day, he woke up with a smile, excited to spend time with his children, to watch them grow, to see them learn. He took them to the park, played games with them, and even helped them with their homework as they got older. His life was no longer about work and success. It was about family. It was about love. One evening, as Everett sat on the sofa, watching the triplets play with their building blocks, Lila walked into the room. She had just come home from class, her backpack slung over her shoulder. She was smiling, her eyes bright. "I finished my assignment early today," she said, her voice filled with excitement. Everett looked up at her, pride filling his chest. "That's my girl. You're doing great, Lila." She smiled at him. "I'm just so grateful, Everett. I never thought I'd be here. I thought my life was over before it even started." "You've come so far," Everett said, his voice filled with warmth. "You've made me proud, and I know your mother would be proud too." Lila's eyes softened at the mention of her mother, Clara, the woman who had given everything for her children. Lila thought of the sacrifices Clara had made and the way Everett had honored that love by helping her family. "I don't think I'll ever be able to repay you for everything you've done for us," Lila said quietly, sitting down next to him. "You don't have to," Everett replied, his voice full of emotion. "You've given me more than I could ever ask for. You brought me back to life, Lila, you and the babies. I thought I had lost everything, and then I found you." Lila reached out and took his hand. "I was just trying to survive. I didn't know I was giving you anything, but now I understand. You gave us everything, and I'm going to make sure I give back to you, to the babies." "You already have," Everett said, his eyes glistening with tears. "You've given me a family. You've given me a reason to wake up every day and smile. You've given me everything." Lila's heart swelled with emotion as she looked at Everett. The man who had once been a stranger, the man who had been so closed off from the world, was now the father she had always needed. And Everett, he had found something in Lila and the triplets that he never thought he'd find again. A sense of purpose, of love, and of family. The triplets ran over to him, each of them holding up their own drawings, showing him the colorful pictures they had made that afternoon. Everett laughed, his heart full. He took the drawings from their hands, kissing their foreheads, his love for them overflowing. "You're a real dad now, Everett," Lila said with a soft smile, watching the scene unfold. "I guess I am," Everett said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I've never been happier." As the family sat together, surrounded by laughter and love, Everett looked around at the life he had built, this life that he never thought was possible. A year ago, he had been lost, stuck in a world of wealth and loneliness. But now, he had everything he needed. He had a family, he had love, and he had a purpose through a girl who had nothing, Lila, the girl he had found in the park.